Today we talked about standard deviation in class, and I just want to review what we did in class and let you have an opportunity to have something that you can listen to over again, since we're heading into the end of our trimester and there really isn't a lot of time to continue going over material. All right, so we talked about standard deviation of data sets today in class. And so when we talk about a data set, let's just talk about a group of numbers in our data. Perhaps our data set contains the number 5, 7, 9, 12, and 13. We won't make a large data set because the main thing I want you to do is just remember how to find the standard deviation. All right. And as we were talking about the standard data set, one of the main things we talked about was finding the mean. All right. And as many of you know, the mean is another way of just saying let's find the average. All right. So let's find the average of this data set here. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in our data set. So what we're going to do is simply add all the numbers. 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 12 plus 13. Uh-oh, that looks a little janky. Plus 13. And we're going to take those numbers and then divide them by the number that there are in the data set. So in this case, we have 5 data sets. All right. So I'm going to give you a minute to add those up and tell me what the mean is. All right, so if you came up with those numbers, the sum of those numbers was 46, you are correct, over 5. All right, so let's convert that to a decimal. And 46 divided by 5 give us a mean of 9.2. All right, so our mean is 9.2. Now, there was a large formula for finding the deviation, but in class we just talked about building a table. All right, and if you remember, that table contained our number and our data. It contained our mean. Then it contained the difference between that term and the mean. And then the last thing we did was we found the square root of that data. All right, well, not the square root, but we squared that information. All right, so let's plug that information in so that we can find our standard deviation. So our data terms were 5, 7, 9, 12, and 13. And our mean was 9.2. You can write it every time, or as long as you know it's 9.2. That is fine. All right. And the next thing we ask you to do is to find the difference between those two. So if we find the difference between 9.5 and 9.2 and 5, we'd find out that that is the same as saying negative 4.2. The difference between these two would be negative 2.2, negative 0.2. All right, and then if we do 12 and the difference between 12 and 9.2, we get 2.8. and then 3.8. So the next thing we want to do is simply square those numbers. All right, or square this term. In other words, if I were to square 4.2, that's what we're looking for, that number here. All right, so 4.2 squared, or 4.2 times 4.2, is the same as saying 17.64. All right. The same here, we'll just keep squaring all these numbers. And in this case, we get 4.84. Zero 0.04 and 2.8 times 2.8 will give us 7.84, and then finally 3.8 times 3.8 gives us 14.44. So once again, we're going to repeat the steps that we did when we found the mean or the average in the first data set, and we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to add all of these numbers here, and let's see what we come up with. All right, so when we add all these numbers up, we end up with 44.8. All right. Now here's the major difference. Once we've gotten that far, what we're going to do is, again, not only are we going to divide this by the number of characters that they are, but we're going to actually find the square root of that number. All right. So we're going to actually find the square root of 44.8 divided by 5. All right. So 44.8 divided by 5 will give us 8.96, and we want to find the square root of that number. All right. I don't have the square root calculator here with me, so pause while I get one, and then I will get that in. All right. So if you pulled out your calculator and you squared this number, you would have gotten a standard deviation of 2.99. I'm going to round it there. It would have actually been a lot longer number. It would have been 2.99325,909. All right. But for the sake, we're just going to round to 2.99 because your textbook simply asks you to round to the nearest hundredths. All right, so that's how we found the standard deviation today. But here, like I said, I wanted to put a refresher on here so that you would have it if you were one of those people who were up late working on your homework. Thank you.